Hi, I'm Arya. I'm 22 and last month my parents bought my sister a brand new Tesla. On the exact same day they made me take the bus to my own college graduation. Yeah, you heard that right. One of us got champagne and car keys, the other got a bus ticket and a goodbye wave. I'm sharing this story because it changed how I see family and love. Tell me where you're watching from, and subscribe for more real family stories like mine. The morning started with laughter, the kind that doesn't belong to you. I woke up to the sound of my mom's voice carrying through the walls, high and excited, followed by the deep rumble of my dad's chuckle. For a moment, I thought maybe they were talking about me. It was my graduation day after all. 4 years of balancing classes, shifts at the coffee shop and late night studying. It had all led to this morning. But when I pushed my curtain aside, I saw it. A gleaming white Tesla in our driveway. The sunlight hit the hood so perfectly that it almost looked staged, like a commercial for everything I didn't have. My sister Bella stood beside it, her hands over her mouth in fake shock. She was still in her pajamas, her blonde hair tied up in a messy bun, yet somehow she managed to look like she'd stepped out of a catalog. Mom and Dad stood in front of her, beaming. For a few seconds I just stared. Didn't click right away. Then I heard Mom say, "Surprise, sweetie. You deserve it. You worked so hard on your art portfolio." Art portfolio. That was all it took for my stomach to drop. I'd graduated with honors. I juggled 3 part-time jobs to stay in school. And my sister, who'd switched majors 3 times, was getting a Tesla because she finally finished 1 semester without quitting. I stood frozen at my window, my heart beating in my ears. The only thing louder was the sound of the Tesla's startup chime. I forced a smile as I walked outside. My cap and gown hung from my arm, pressed and ready, but nobody noticed. Bella was crying happy tears, Dad filming with his phone. I stood a few feet away, invisible in my own yard. When Mom noticed me, her smile faltered just for a second. "Oh honey, you're up. Isn't it amazing?" she said, pointing at the car. "Yeah," I murmured. "It's really nice." Bella turned, brushing her hair back. "You like it? It's the Model 3. Fully electric. Mom said it's safer for me since I'll be driving to classes." Classes? Right. Because driving half a mile to campus in a luxury car was clearly a safety issue. Dad laughed, patting my shoulder. "Maybe one day you'll get one too, Arya. But for now." He handed me something small and rectangular. For a moment my heart lifted. I thought it might be a card, maybe a note saying they were proud of me. It was a folded bus schedule. "Just in case you missed the morning ride," he said. "Traffic's been crazy lately." The rest of breakfast passed like a blur. Bella posted pictures on Instagram. Her holding the keys, Mom hugging her, Dad pretending to wipe away tears. Every caption had something about how supportive our family was. Meanwhile, I sat at the table, quietly eating toast that had gone cold. My phone buzzed with messages from friends. "Can't wait to see you at graduation. Are your parents coming?" I typed yes and deleted it before sending. Mom glanced at me once, frowning slightly. "You should probably leave soon, honey. You don't want to miss the bus." I looked at the Tesla again. "You're not coming?" She sighed. "Sweetheart, your sister's got her orientation meeting today. We'll celebrate tonight, okay? Don't be so sensitive." Sensitive. That word always cut deeper than it should. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Yeah, sure." When I went back to my room, I sat on the edge of my bed, the graduation gown draped over my knees. I'd imagined this day so many times, my parents in the audience, Mom tearing up when they called my name. Instead, I had bus fare and silence. I caught my reflection in the mirror. The same face that had smiled through every disappointment, every maybe next time, every "you're stronger, Arya." That phrase had been their excuse for everything. Bella was fragile, creative, needed encouragement. I was strong, which apparently meant I didn't need love, attention, or even a ride. As I zipped my gown into a plastic bag, I noticed a note on my dresser. It was from Bella, written in pink marker. "Sorry we can't go to your graduation. I owe you one winking face, love you." I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it and tucked it into my purse. Not because it meant something, but because I wanted to remember how this felt. When I walked out the door, Bella's laughter echoed behind me. The Tesla's engine was silent as it rolled out of the driveway, but the sound it left in my chest was deafening. The air outside was heavy, warm, and smelled faintly of rain. The sky was gray, like even it couldn't decide whether to celebrate or cry. I walked down our quiet suburban street, passing houses where proud parents were taking pictures of their kids in graduation gowns. Mrs. Green, our neighbor, waved from her porch. "Oh, Arya. Big day, huh? Your parents must be so proud." I forced a small laugh. "Yeah, they're excited." She smiled, holding up her phone. "Want me to take a picture for them?" For a second I thought about saying no. But then I nodded. She took one, me standing alone on the sidewalk in my wrinkled gown, holding my bus pass like a diploma. As I kept walking, a memory hit me: Bella's 10th birthday party. She'd cried because I got a slightly bigger slice of cake. Mom took mine away and gave it to her, saying, "Let her have it, Arya. You're the older one. You understand." That day, I decided understanding was overrated. Still, I'd spent years trying to earn their approval: straight A's, scholarships, perfect behavior. But no matter what I did, Bella's bare minimum effort outshined me. She just had a way of being seen even when she didn't deserve it. And me? I was the background, the reliable one, the strong one. When I reached the end of our street, the bus stop came into view. A cracked bench under a faded sign. A few people waited there. An older man in a denim jacket, a mom with a toddler, and a teenage boy scrolling on his phone. No one looked at me twice. That was almost comforting. I sat down, setting my gown beside me, and stared at my reflection in the glass of the shelter. The Tesla had probably already reached downtown by now. Bella was probably filming her first drive video. And here I was wondering how long the bus would take. I tried to shake it off, but the hurt sat heavy in my chest. It wasn't about the car. It was about what it meant. That I could achieve something real, something I'd worked years for, and still not be worth showing up for. The bus arrived with a loud hiss of brakes. I climbed aboard, paid the fare, and found a seat near the window. The seats were torn at the edges. The air smelled faintly like coffee and cleaning spray. I didn't mind. As the bus pulled away, I watched our street fade into the distance. I thought about what Bella might post next, probably something about gratitude and success. I smiled bitterly at the thought. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. "Proud of you, honey. Don't forget to smile for pictures." "No, we're sorry we can't be there." "No, we love you. Just instructions." I typed a reply, "Thanks," and didn't send it. Somewhere between the first and second stop, I realized something. I was done chasing their love. I didn't know what that meant yet, or what would come next, but for the first time, I felt something close to peace. I leaned back in the seat, the city moving past in a blur. I thought about the graduation waiting ahead, the empty seats, the applause for others, but at least it would be mine. My moment. Even if no one else cared. The bus rattled down the street, sunlight flashing through the windows. I looked out one last time, watching the road curve toward the city. And right then I whispered to myself, barely loud enough to hear. They may have bought her a Tesla, but I'm the one driving my life. The bus rattled over a crack in the road, jolting me back to reality. I held onto the metal pole beside me, the hum of the engine filling the silence that had settled inside me. Outside, the morning sun peeked through scattered clouds, lighting up patches of the city like it couldn't decide whether to be kind or cruel. The seat beside me was empty, though I wished it wasn't. Not because I wanted company, but because emptiness makes you think louder. The bus smelled faintly of old fabric and cleaning spray. The kind of smell that's not bad, just familiar. It reminded me of every early morning ride to work, every time I couldn't afford gas money, every sacrifice I made without ever asking for help. Funny how life keeps handing you the same lesson until you finally decide you've learned it. A woman across from me caught my eye. She looked to be in her 60s, dressed neatly in a floral blouse and beige sweater. She smiled, one of those soft, motherly smiles that didn't ask for anything in return. "Graduation day?" she asked, nodding toward the gown folded on my lap. "Yeah," I said, my voice barely above the rumble of the bus. "College?" She smiled wider. "Well, congratulations, sweetheart. That's something no one can take from you." Her words hit harder than she probably intended. No one can take it from you. Except maybe the people who were supposed to celebrate it with you. I thanked her, turning my face toward the window before she could see the tears building in my eyes. The city rolled by in blurry colors, Coffee shops, gas stations, a row of old brick houses. It looked like any other day to everyone else. But to me it was the day everything quietly changed. At the next stop, a group of teenagers climbed on loud, laughing, wearing matching school sweatshirts. One of them glanced at my gown and said, "Congrats," before rushing to the back with his friends. His voice was cheerful, genuine, and for a second I smiled. Then I remembered how my own family hadn't said it once that morning. Not once. The bus pulled forward again, and I caught my reflection in the window. The girl staring back at me looked calm, but her eyes told another story. There was something there, something I hadn't noticed before. Not just sadness. A flicker of strength. The quiet kind. The kind that grows out of disappointment. As we passed the downtown area, I remembered all the times I'd taken this same route before. When my old car broke down sophomore year, Dad said fixing it was too expensive right now. But when Bella's old laptop stopped working, he'd replaced it the same day. I told myself back then that it was fine, that I didn't need things to prove I mattered. But sitting there on that bus, I realized it wasn't about things. It was about being seen, being chosen. A sudden bump made my coffee spill slightly over the lid. "Oh shoot," I muttered, grabbing a napkin from my bag. The man sitting a row ahead turned and offered me a handful of tissues. "Bus driver hit that same pothole yesterday," he said with a grin. "He's got a perfect record of finding it every time." I laughed softly. "Thanks. Big day?" he asked, noticing the gown. "Yeah," I said. "Graduation." He nodded. "My daughter graduated last year. Whole family went. Big deal for us." He paused, catching my hesitation. "Your folks coming too?" I forced a smile. "They wanted to, but they couldn't make it." He nodded slowly, eyes kind but understanding. "Well, doesn't matter who's there, kid. You walked that stage proud. You earned it." I wanted to tell him the truth, that I wasn't sure pride was enough anymore, but I just nodded. Because sometimes silence feels safer than explaining a hurt. You know they wouldn't understand. The bus stopped again, and new passengers shuffled in. Among them was a young mother with a baby in a stroller. The baby giggled at me, waving his tiny hands. I smiled back, waving softly. The mom looked tired but grateful. "He likes your gown," she said with a laugh. "He thinks it's a costume." "Tell him it kind of is," I said, smiling faintly. "It's what we wear to pretend we've made it." She laughed, shaking her head. "You're funny. You have made it. You'll see." Her words lingered as the bus moved again. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that hard work eventually meant something, even if no one clapped for you. Outside, the scenery began to change. The neighborhoods grew older, smaller, their paint peeling, their lawns untended. A part of me always liked this route. It showed the city's truth. The parts that didn't make it onto postcards or social media posts. The parts that just kept going. Maybe that's what I wanted too. To just keep going. Halfway through the ride, the bus grew quieter. The teenagers got off, the chatter faded, and only a handful of us remained. The driver hummed to himself, a faint country tune playing from a small radio near the front. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the rhythm of the bus lull me into a strange calm. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Bella. "Hope your graduation's fun. Can I borrow your black heels later? Need them for my dinner tonight." Face blowing a kiss. I stared at the screen for a full minute, disbelief washing over me. No congratulations. No acknowledgement. Just another request. Another take. I typed a reply, "Sure. They're by my closet." Then deleted it. Not this time. The bus slowed near a red light, and for a second I imagined getting off. Just walking. Leaving the city, the expectations, all of it. But then I remembered the old lady's words. That's something no one can take from you. No. I wasn't going to run from this day. I was going to own it, even if no one else showed up. As the bus turned onto the main street near the university, I saw other students heading in the same direction. Some with families, some alone. A few carried flowers. One girl was FaceTiming her parents, showing them the campus. I wondered if she knew how lucky she was. At the next stop, an older man boarded and sat across from me. He had a stack of newspapers and a thermos. He looked like the kind of person who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything. He noticed the gown and grinned. "Graduating, huh?" I nodded. Good for you, he said. You remind me of my granddaughter. Smart kid. But her parents, not always there when they should have been. That caught my attention. Really? He nodded. Sometimes the people who should cheer the loudest just don't. Doesn't mean you stop playing the game. I didn't know why, but that line hit me right in the chest. Did she ever forgive them? I asked. He smiled softly. She learned to stop waiting for them. That was enough. When he looked away, I turned back toward the window, blinking back the tears that kept threatening to fall. The bus made a sudden sharp turn, and my phone slipped from my lap, landing near the aisle. Before I could reach for it, the young mom from earlier bent down and handed it back to me. Got it, she said cheerfully. Thank you. She smiled. You okay, hon? You look like you're holding the world on your shoulders. I laughed lightly. Feels like it. You'll be fine, she said with quiet certainty. Strong ones always are. That phrase again. Strong ones. I'd heard it my whole life. But for the first time it didn't sound like a burden. It sounded like truth. As the bus neared the final stop before campus, I glanced outside and saw a family standing on the corner. Parents holding flowers, a teenage girl in a gown laughing as they took pictures. The sight stung, but it also made me realize something. It wasn't jealousy. It was grief. Grief for the family moments I'd never had. For the validation that would never come. But grief doesn't mean weakness. It means something mattered. And it did. When the bus pulled up to the final stop, I hesitated. The driver, a man with kind eyes and gray hair, turned slightly toward me. End of the line, kid, he said with a half smile. I nodded, standing up and slinging my bag over my shoulder. Thank you. He looked at me a moment longer. Hey, he said softly. Whatever's waiting for you out there, make sure you walk tall. You earned it. That made my throat tighten. Thank you, I whispered again, stepping off the bus. The air outside hit me, warm and heavy with the smell of cut grass and summer rain. I took a deep breath and looked back at the bus as it pulled away. For a moment I just stood there, watching it disappear down the street, the hum of the engine fading into the distance. That ride, what should have been just a way to get from one place to another, had become something else entirely. A reminder. A mirror. A quiet lesson wrapped in the ordinary. I adjusted the gown over my arm and started walking toward the campus. My shoes clicked softly against the pavement, each step steadier than the last. For the first time that day, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen by strangers, by chance, by the world itself. And as the wind brushed past me, I realized that maybe this wasn't the day my family forgot me. Maybe it was the day I finally remembered myself. The closer I got to the campus, the louder everything became. Laughter. Shouts. The echo of music spilling from the speakers near the main field. The air buzzed with excitement, the kind that usually feels contagious. Except it didn't. Not for me. The rows of white chairs stretched across the green lawn like an ocean of celebration. Parents held flowers, siblings held phones, everyone held something. Something except me. I held only my cap and the ache of an empty space where family should have been. The volunteer at the gate scanned my ticket and smiled. Congratulations, graduate. Thanks, I said, my voice thinner than I expected. The moment I stepped onto the field, a wave of heat hit me. The sun sat high, bright and unbothered, while a soft breeze tugged at the tassels of my cap. Students gathered in groups, hugging, taking selfies, comparing honor cords. I found my seat in the F row, fourth from the end. Around me, the air pulsed with joy and camera flashes. I sat down slowly, careful not to wrinkle the gown, and laid my hands on my lap. My palms were slightly trembling, though I wasn't sure if it was from nerves or something else entirely. To my right sat a girl named Megan, someone I'd had a few classes with. She noticed me and smiled. Hey, you made it. Yeah, I said, trying to match her energy. Where's your family sitting? She asked, scanning the crowd of waving parents. I hesitated for a beat. Couldn't make it, I said simply. Her smile faltered. Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay, I said quickly, forcing a smile. They're busy. She nodded awkwardly, clearly not knowing what to say next. So we sat there in polite silence as the loudspeaker crackled to life. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2025 graduation ceremony. The crowd erupted in cheers. Megan's mom waved a big sign with her daughter's name on it. Someone behind me blew a whistle. Balloons floated up from somewhere near the back. And I just sat there smiling because it felt safer than frowning. The speeches began, first the dean, then the valedictorian. Words like resilience, perseverance, growth filled the air. Words that should have inspired me. Instead, they felt like echoes of everything I'd had to learn alone. When the valedictorian said, "We're here because of the people who believed in us," a lump formed in my throat. I swallowed it down, but it didn't go away. My hands twisted the edge of my program until the paper crumpled. I scanned the crowd again. Row after row of smiling faces, parents waving phones, friends holding up banners. And then there it was. A gap. An empty row of chairs in the middle section. Unclaimed. Unused. For some reason, that emptiness caught my eye more than all the cheering faces combined. Because that was where they should have been sitting. Mom. Dad. Bella. I pictured it. Them waving, smiling, maybe even pretending they'd been proud all along. And for a second I almost wished for that illusion. But illusions don't last. They dissolve the moment you touch them. The dean's voice boomed through the speakers again. "Now will the graduates please rise?" We stood, hundreds of us moving together. A sea of caps glinting in the sunlight. My knees felt weak, not from the heat but from the weight of it all. The years. The loneliness. The quiet victories that no one clapped for. "Graduates, you've worked hard for this day," the dean continued. "No matter who is here, or isn't, this moment belongs to you." I froze. No matter who is here, or isn't. It was as if the universe had leaned down and whispered right in my ear. When my name was called, I stepped forward. My heart thudded so loudly it drowned out the applause for the student before me. "Arya Collins," the announcer said, his voice firm and clear. The sound of it echoed across the field, bouncing between the trees and bleachers. I walked up the stairs, my shoes clacking against the wooden platform, and for a second time slowed. I saw the stage lights gleaming off the dean's polished metal. I saw the diploma folder waiting in his hands. And I saw the front rows, filled with strangers cheering for someone else. But then something shifted. I looked beyond the empty seats. Farther back. The woman from the bus, the one with the floral blouse, was standing near the fence, clapping. I blinked, wondering if I was imagining it, but no, she was really there. She caught my eye and gave me the same gentle smile from before. The same one that said, "You made it." My breath caught in my chest. I stepped forward, took the diploma, and shook the dean's hand. The moment his palm met mine, something inside me unclenched. I walked off the stage to the sound of cheers. Not mine, but enough. When I returned to my seat, Megan leaned over, grinning. "You looked so calm up there." I would have tripped. I laughed softly. I almost did. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur, more names, more clapping, more confetti. But I wasn't really there anymore. My body sat in the chair, but my mind drifted to every night I'd studied until sunrise, every job I'd worked to pay tuition, every time I'd pushed through without applause. And now, sitting there under the wide blue sky, I realized that maybe this was what growth looked like. Quiet, lonely, but real. When the ceremony ended, the field turned into chaos. Parents rushed forward with flowers, students posed for pictures, laughter filled the air. I stood there clutching my diploma, unsure of where to go. Megan's mom approached, holding a bouquet of lilies. "Arya, congratulations, sweetheart," she said warmly. "You girls did it." "Thank you," I said, surprised by her kindness. "Do you want me to take a photo of you?" she offered. I hesitated. "Sure." She took my phone and snapped a few pictures. "Perfect," she said. "You've got the glow of someone who just conquered the world." I smiled, trying not to let my voice shake. "Thank you for that." As they left to join their relatives, I wandered toward the edge of the field. The crowd was thinning, and the sound of laughter drifted away with the wind. I sat down on one of the folding chairs that had been left behind. Ironically, one from the empty row. The fabric was still warm from the sun. I looked at the stage, now half dismantled, and thought about how strange it was that something so monumental could vanish so quickly. Hours of ceremony, years of effort, and then it's gone. My phone buzzed. A notification. "Bella. Mom said we'll take you out later this week. Dad's tired right now. Congrats though, graduation cap." I stared at the message. It wasn't cruel, not even cold, it was casual. Detached. The kind of message you send when you're checking something off a list. I typed back, "It's fine. Don't worry about it." Then put the phone away before I could see the typing bubble appear. The sun dipped lower, painting everything gold. The field grew emptier by the minute. Volunteers stacked chairs. The janitor pushed a cart of programs toward the trash. And I sat there still in my gown watching shadows stretch across the grass. For a moment I let myself imagine an alternate version of today. One where they were in the crowd cheering, waving, taking pictures like everyone else's families. Then I imagined how quickly that version would fade once we got home. The silence at dinner. The way they'd turn the conversation toward Bella. The familiar ache of being invisible again. Maybe it was better this way. At least the silence here was honest. The woman from the bus appeared again. I hadn't noticed her walk over until she was standing just a few feet away. "You did it," she said with a smile. I blinked, stunned. "You're here." "I live nearby," she said with a shrug. "I like to come see the ceremonies. Always reminds me of my own kids." I smiled softly. "Thank you for being here." She tilted her head. "You were brave coming alone." "I didn't really have a choice," I admitted. "Maybe not," she said gently. "But you made it anyway. That's what matters." Her words sat heavy in my chest, the kind of weight that doesn't hurt, just settles. She gave my arm a light pat. "Take a picture of yourself. You'll want to remember this someday." Then she walked away, blending into the thinning crowd. I took out my phone. The screen reflected my face, tired, tear-streaked but smiling. I turned the camera around, lifted it, and took a photo. Just me, the stage behind, and rows of empty seats. It looked lonely, maybe even sad. But to me it looked true. Because those empty seats weren't just a reminder of who wasn't there. They were proof of what I'd done without them. As the sky turned a deep orange, I finally stood up, folding the chair I'd been sitting on and setting it gently aside. I walked toward the gate, my cap still in hand, my diploma pressed against my chest. The sound of laughter faded completely now, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves. I paused once at the exit, turning back for one last look. The chairs stood in neat rows again. Some full, some empty, like a reflection of life itself. For the first time, I didn't feel bitterness when I saw those empty seats. I felt peace. Because today wasn't about who didn't show up. It was about the girl who did. And that girl, me, had finally learned that sometimes silence can be the loudest kind of applause. The walk home that night felt longer than usual. Maybe it was the gown still hanging off my arm, or the ache in my chest that seemed to grow heavier with each block. The streetlights flickered on one by one, painting the sidewalks gold. Every car that passed seemed to hum a reminder of where I'd been and what I'd been forced to face alone. By the time I reached our street, my phone buzzed again. "Mom, dinner's ready. Bella's friends are coming by, so don't be late." Dinner. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just graduated from college, the first in our family to do it, and spent the most important day of my life surrounded by strangers instead of them. I stood on the front porch for a moment before walking in. Laughter spilled from the kitchen, bright, careless, warm. It hit me the same way that Tesla's reflection had that morning. Sharp and cold all at once. Inside, the house smelled like garlic bread and roasted chicken. The sound of Bella's voice carried through the air, loud and confident. And then I told Dad that if we're going to drive to California, I'm not taking the old SUV. The Tesla's perfect for road trips. I stopped in the hallway. She was wearing a glittery top, her hair styled perfectly. My parents sat at the table, plates already half empty. My chair, the one I'd sat in since I was 10, was still pulled out, waiting, but not for me. Mom glanced up casually. "There you are. You're late." "I walked from the bus stop," I said quietly. "Graduation ended late." Dad didn't even look up from his plate. "You should have called. You know the bus gets sketchy after dark." Sketchy. That's what he called it. Not unfair. Not hurtful. Not humiliating. Just sketchy. "I did text," I said. "You didn't answer." He shrugged. "I was driving your sister around. Didn't see it." Bella giggled. "You should have seen Mom's face when I hit the autopilot button. She thought it was gonna crash." Mom laughed. "Don't even remind me. I nearly spilled my coffee all over." Their laughter filled the kitchen, bouncing off the walls, and for a second I just stood there, diploma still in my hand. It was ridiculous, but I'd actually imagined this moment being different. I thought maybe they'd ask how it went, maybe even pretend to care. Did you eat? Mom finally asked. No, I said. There's food on the stove, she said, already turning back to Bella. Help yourself. I walked over, dished up some chicken and salad, and sat at the end of the table. Nobody noticed. They kept talking about road trips, playlists, charging stations, and plans for the summer. Somewhere between Bella's story about her art school friends and Dad's opinion about how electric cars are the future, something inside me began to unravel. I'd spent years holding my tongue, telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. But tonight, after sitting in that sea of empty chairs, after taking a photo alone because no one showed up, I couldn't pretend anymore. I set my fork down slowly. You know, I said, my voice quiet but steady. It's kind of funny. Bella looked up mid-sentence. What is? How this morning started with you getting a brand new car, I said. And I spent mine waiting for a bus. The room went still. Mom frowned. Arya, don't start. I'm not starting anything, I said. I'm just noticing how differently we're treated. She gets a Tesla. I get a bus schedule. Dad sighed like I was a problem he'd hoped to avoid. You're reading too much into it. We're proud of both of you. I laughed softly. Really? Because you didn't even come to my graduation. Mom crossed her arms. We had things to take care of. Like test driving her car? I cut in. The air thickened. Bella rolled her eyes. Oh my gosh, are we really doing this? I didn't ask them to buy it for me. I know you didn't, I said, looking at her. But you didn't exactly tell them not to either. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Mom put down her fork. You're being ungrateful. We do what we can. You had a full scholarship, Arya. That's something to be proud of. That scholarship wasn't a gift, I said, my voice rising despite myself. I earned it. I worked nights and weekends to keep my grades up, while you two bragged about Bella's art projects. Dad slammed his hand lightly on the table. Watch your tone. I looked at him, really looked at him. Why? Does it bother you to hear the truth out loud? The silence that followed was heavy. Even the refrigerator's hum seemed too loud. Mom finally spoke. You're making this into something it's not. We love you both the same. I shook my head slowly. No, you don't. You love the version of me that doesn't need anything from you. The one who handles her own problems quietly. You love the peace I bring to the house, not the person I am. Dad's jaw tightened. That's not true. Then why didn't you show up today? I asked. It wasn't even an hour away. You had time to charge a Tesla, but not to sit through a ceremony. Nobody answered. Bella's voice finally broke the silence. Maybe they thought you wouldn't care that much. I turned to her. Everyone cares when their family doesn't show up. For the first time, I saw my mom's face soften just slightly. She looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Maybe guilt, maybe confusion. I didn't know. I pushed my chair back. I'm not mad about the car, I said. I'm mad that it took me 22 years to realize where I stand. My dad leaned back, rubbing his temples. Arya, don't do this tonight. Let's just eat. I shook my head. No. You've eaten. You've laughed. You've celebrated. But you haven't listened. My voice trembled, not with weakness but release. I've spent my whole life trying to make you proud. Straight A's. No trouble. No complaints. I did everything right and you still looked right through me. I thought maybe today would be different. But it wasn't. Mom's eyes glistened for a second before she blinked it away. Dad looked down at his plate. And Bella? She looked uncomfortable for the first time. After a long pause, Mom said quietly, We didn't mean to make you feel that way. I took a deep breath. You didn't have to mean it for it to hurt. The words hung in the air like smoke. Heavy, invisible, and impossible to ignore. I stood up, gathering my plate. I'm not angry anymore, I said. I just can't keep pretending it doesn't matter. Mom frowned. Where are you going? To my room, I said, then paused. Actually, I think I'm leaving. Bella blinked. Leaving? Like for the night? For a while, I said quietly. I'll figure it out. Dad's voice was sharp now. You're overreacting. Maybe, I said, setting my plate in the sink. But at least I'm finally reacting. I went upstairs and grabbed a duffel bag. It didn't take long, most of my life fit into one. A few clothes, my laptop, the photo of me and Grandma from years ago, back when someone in this house still saw me. As I zipped the bag, I heard footsteps in the hall. Bella's voice. Arya, wait. I turned. She stood there, awkwardly twisting her bracelet. I didn't mean for today to be like that. I know, I said softly. It's not about you. Then why does it feel like it is? Because you're the one they see, I said. And I'm the one they forget. She didn't respond. She just nodded slowly, her eyes glossy. When I walked downstairs, Mom was standing by the counter. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. I stopped by the door. I think I do. Not to punish you, to protect myself. Dad didn't say anything. He just looked tired. Maybe he didn't understand, or maybe he just didn't care to. I slipped on my jacket. I don't know where I'm going yet, I said. But wherever it is, it'll be somewhere I can breathe. Mom's lips parted like she wanted to stop me, but nothing came out. So I opened the door. The cool night air hit my face. The same air that had felt lonely hours ago now felt different, cleansing. The street was quiet. The sound of crickets filled the space between the streetlights. I started walking toward the bus stop again, my bag slung over my shoulder. Halfway down the block, I heard a voice behind me. Arya. I turned. Bella stood at the end of the driveway, barefoot, holding something small in her hand, a folded napkin. I packed you some chicken, she said, holding it up awkwardly. You probably didn't eat much. For the first time all day I smiled. A real one. Thanks, I said, taking it. She nodded. Be safe, okay? I will. She hesitated. You'll come back, right? I looked at her for a long moment. When it feels like home again. Then I turned and walked away. The bus stop was empty this time. No waiting passengers, no woman in a floral blouse. Just me, the quiet, and the soft hum of streetlights. When the bus finally arrived, I climbed aboard, paid my fare, and sat near the window. As we pulled away, I saw my house getting smaller in the distance. The Tesla gleamed under the porch light, perfect and silent. For once I didn't envy it, because it was just a car. And I was finally moving. The ride was quiet, just the low hum of the engine and the faint sound of wind outside. I didn't know where I'd go next, maybe a friend's apartment, maybe a cheap motel for a few nights. But for the first time that uncertainty didn't scare me. I leaned my head against the window, watching the city lights blur past. For so long I'd mistaken silence for peace. Tonight I understood the difference. Peace isn't quiet. It's knowing your voice finally matters, even if no one else wants to hear it. And as the bus turned the corner, I whispered to myself. I finally spoke up. The first morning away from home felt strange. I woke up to sunlight slipping through the blinds of a small studio apartment that smelled faintly of coffee and fresh paint. The air was quiet, no sound of Bella's music echoing from the next room, no clinking of dishes from Mom's morning rush. Just stillness. For the first time in years, I didn't have to tiptoe around anyone's moods. I brewed my own coffee, sat by the window, and watched people heading to work below. There was something liberating about the simplicity, no expectations, no comparisons. I'd rented the place on the edge of town, using the money I'd saved from tutoring and the small bonus I'd earned at the library. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Days turned into weeks. I found a job at a local bookstore. One of those cozy ones that smelled like paper and dust, where people still whispered as they browsed. The owner, an older woman named Elaine, had soft eyes and an easy laugh. She hired me after one interview and a handshake. You've got the kind of calm people like to be around, she said. It became my sanctuary. By late summer, I'd settled into a rhythm. Mornings at the bookstore, evenings journaling, sometimes dinner with my neighbor Mia, a nurse who always brought leftovers. She had a way of filling the silence with light conversation. Never prying too deep, but always reminding me I wasn't alone. Every once in a while, my phone buzzed with messages from Bella. Bella, you okay? Me, yeah. Bella, Mom keeps asking where you are. Me, tell her I'm fine. That was the pattern, short, polite, distant. But even in those small exchanges I felt something shifting. Maybe guilt. Maybe realization. It was a gray October afternoon when everything changed. I was organizing a new shipment of books when my phone rang. The number flashed on the screen. Mom. For a second I almost didn't answer. But something, maybe instinct, made me swipe the call. Hello. Her voice was shaky. Arya, it's Dad. He's in the hospital. The words hit harder than I expected. What happened? Chest pain. They think it's his heart. He's stable, but they want to run more tests. I gripped the edge of the counter. Where are you? County General. Please, her voice cracked. Can you come? There was no hesitation. I'm on my way. The drive felt longer than it should have. The rain had started soft at first, then steady, streaking across the windshield like tears I didn't want to name. My hands tightened around the steering wheel, every mile stirring memories I thought I'd buried. When I finally reached the hospital, I saw Mom sitting in the waiting area. Her hair looked thinner, her eyes tired. For a moment, she didn't even notice me. Mom, I said softly. She looked up, and something in her face broke. Oh, Arya. She stood and hugged me like she hadn't in years. It was awkward at first, hesitant, then tighter, the kind of hug that said more than words could. He's inside, she whispered. They're running tests. I followed her into the room. Dad lay on the hospital bed, tubes attached to his arm, heart monitor beeping steadily. His skin looked pale, fragile. I'd never seen him like that, so still, so human. He looked up slowly. Arya. His voice was weak but clear. Hey, I said softly, moving closer. How are you feeling? Like an old car, he said, forcing a smile. Still running, but barely. It was strange. This man who had always seemed unshakable, now vulnerable. Something inside me softened. Mom stood quietly near the door, her hands trembling. I sat beside him. You scared us, I said. He gave a faint chuckle. Guess I finally got your attention, huh? His attempt at humor couldn't hide the guilt in his eyes. Later that night, while Dad rested, Mom and I sat in the hospital cafeteria. The fluorescent lights hummed above us, casting a dull glow over our untouched cups of coffee. I didn't know who else to call, she said quietly. Bella panicked. She's still in class. I didn't want her to drive in the rain. It's okay, I said. You did the right thing. Mom looked at me for a long time. You've changed, she said finally. You're calmer. Stronger. Leaving forced me to be. She nodded slowly, eyes glistening. I keep thinking about that night. About the things you said. I didn't answer. You were right, she whispered. We did take you for granted. I don't know why it took this to see it. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of vending machines filled the silence. I never wanted to make you feel less loved, she continued, her voice cracking. We thought you didn't need us. You were always so capable. I took a slow breath. Needing help and being capable aren't opposites, Mom. She looked down at her cup. I know that now. The next morning Bella arrived. Hair messy, eyes swollen. She rushed into my arms before saying a word. I didn't know who else could come, Mom, she said, her voice trembling. I was scared you wouldn't come. I smiled faintly. You knew I would. We sat together by Dad's bed, taking turns talking to him when he was awake and to each other when he wasn't. In a strange way, it felt like the first time we were all in the same room without pretense. No roles, no favorites, just people holding on to what mattered. A few days later, the doctors confirmed that Dad had avoided a major heart attack, but needed lifestyle changes and rest. The house I'd left behind suddenly needed organization, patience, and care. Mom looked exhausted. Bella was juggling school. And so, without anyone asking, I stayed. I cooked meals, organized appointments, managed his medications. I didn't do it out of duty. I did it because somewhere deep down, despite everything, I still cared. Dad often watched me quietly, guilt lingering behind his eyes. One evening, as I helped him with his blanket, he said softly, I don't deserve your kindness. I met his gaze. Maybe not the old you, I said. But I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing it for the man who's trying to do better. He nodded slowly, his eyes damp. You really are stronger than I ever gave you credit for. One night, Bella and I sat on the porch. The air smelled like wet leaves and cold air. Do you ever think about that night? She asked. Every day, I admitted. But not with anger anymore. She fiddled with her ring. I was jealous of you, you know? You made everything look easy, grades, work, independence. I thought Mom and Dad loved you more because you were perfect. I laughed softly. That's funny. I thought they loved you more because you needed them. We both smiled a little sadly. Maybe they just didn't know how to love us right, she said. Maybe, I agreed. But I think they're learning. Weeks passed and the house grew quieter, not from avoidance but peace. Dad began walking again, slower but steadier. Mom started asking about my job, genuinely listening. Bella visited more, helping me cook. One evening, as I was about to leave for the night, Mom stopped me at the door. "Stay for dinner?" she asked gently. I hesitated. "You sure?" She smiled. "I made your favorite. The one you used to ask for every birthday." That small gesture, the remembering, felt like a bridge rebuilt one meal at a time. A month later, Dad was discharged from rehab. The doctor said he was lucky, and that family support had helped. At the small celebration dinner, Dad raised his glass of water. "To Arya," he said, "for being there when we didn't deserve it." My throat tightened. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," he interrupted softly. "You taught me that family isn't about who shows up for the easy days. It's about who stays when it's hard." Bella reached over and squeezed my hand. Mom smiled through tears. It wasn't perfection, it was progress. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stepped outside. The sky was clear, the kind of night where stars seemed close enough to touch. I thought about the girl who had once walked this same street under the same light, carrying a bag and a broken heart. Back then she was walking away. Tonight she was standing still. Not trapped, not lost, just whole. My phone buzzed. A message from Bella. "Bella, don't go too far. We still need you." I smiled, typing back. I'm not going anywhere. But now it's by choice. The next morning I opened my eyes to sunlight streaming through the curtains. The same golden light that had once felt like distance now felt like forgiveness. I had left as the forgotten daughter. I returned as the one they finally saw. And the day they needed me wasn't about revenge or proof. It was about balance. About finally standing tall in a house that once made me small. As I watched the quiet hum of life returning, Dad reading, Mom humming in the kitchen, Bella painting by the window, I realized something simple, something powerful. I didn't need them to validate me anymore. But it meant something that they finally tried. And for the first time in years, when I said, "I'll be home for dinner," I actually meant it.